Pros and cons of zoos, presented by Peyton Wickstorm, Arden Pavilion, Georgie Cotta, Bridget Diaz, Damian Hernandez, and Logan Riel.
Marlon Plavian, and this is some history behind zoos. Zoos are places where animals live in captivity for people to view. People over thousands of years have kept wild animals in captivity, which were not resembled as zoos, but more as a private collection, which showed wealth and power. These collections were called menageries. Found in Egyptian wall carvings, there was proof that ancient rulers created menageries as early as 2500 BCE. There were records of Egyptians going on expeditions to bring back wild exotic animals and bring them back to their collections to reproduce and grow population. Modern public zoos started back in the 18th century during the Enlightenment period. During the start of the Enlightenment, people wanted to get into the science of studying the animal, to study the anatomy of the animals, certain actions of the animal. It was very important to mimic the animal's natural habitat. The first modern zoo was opened in Paris in 1793. The menagerie was more like a museum where live animals were living in rather than natural habitat enclosures. In today's time, zoos are mainly to entertain and educate all ages with a strong scientific purpose. For zoos, it is very important to conserve species as they are kept in captivity. Through the years, the government has regulated and inspected the size of each enclosure. Most zoos specialize in certain types of habitats when in different climate zones. Zoos in cold climates or hotter climates recreate enclosures to cater to specific animals. Some zoos entirely dedicate their space to a certain species, such as land animals or aquatic animals. Captive breeding of endangered species has been scientifically tested in order to prevent extinction, which is valuable to certain animal species and their numbers. Animal extinction is usually due to the expansion in modern buildings, which is a loss in habitat, or through overhunting a certain species. Zoos have put conservation first, but critics say that it is not right and inhumane to keep animals in captivity through even though they are technically in their natural habitat mimicked. While critics are saying that it is inhumane, supporters of zoos are saying that it is important to protect endangered species and put the importance of breeding to increase numbers first. When we think about pros and cons about zoos, it is not just about animal confinement, but it is also about education outside of the zoo, whether it is about overhunting, educating the public about certain types of animals that are endangered outside of a zoo, or the difference between from wild animals and confined trained animals is very important.
Some current events that have occurred in relation to zoos and aquariums are, for example, a young boy fell into an endangered gorilla's pen at the Cincinnati Zoo, in which the gorilla dragged the boy around the pen with him. The endangered gorilla was eventually shot and killed in order to save the boy. People would question whether zoos were becoming obsolete because of these tragic occurrences of the death of an endangered gorilla. Also, another event was at SeaWorld in which Trainer was killed underwater by a 12,000-pound orca. This led to SeaWorld stopping their housing of killer whales and their breeding program in order to prevent other tragedies. Because of this, SeaWorld's park attendance has greatly declined. People have been questioning zoos and what is ethical and what isn't for animals. For example, whether or not the animals get to do anything, or if they get bored because of being in an area that isn't big like the wild. Because of these current events and tragedies at zoos and aquariums, people have been developing their own opinions of what these conservation developments do and should do. People have been conflicted about taking their kids to zoos, and people also think SeaWorld should close because they use animals as entertainment, whereas zoos and aquariums have ethical reasons for keeping animals such as extinction and rehabilitation. People have been on the controversy of zoos because they are torn between two alternating reasons in which zoos have good intentions, but also they think about the animals and that they should be in the wild and free. For example, it is important for the public to be able to experience nature up close and also for education purposes. But animals should be free to roam and be in their natural habitat and not in captivity. People also hope to meet halfway, in which they increase the quality of life in captivity for the animals, while keeping fewer of them so people can still see and experience them up close, which will then allow more animals to roam free. Rehabilitation is great in my opinion. It allows animals to become healthy and strong again, and able to bring them back to their natural habitat in the wild. Zoos care for these animals by treating them for when they are sick or injured and help them heal. They are only kept in human contact until they are healthy enough and able to live in the wild by themselves. Wildlife rehabilitation also provides education opportunities and information about what dangers animals face in the wild.
Some pros to having zoos are, zoos have helped many different species come back from extinction. The way that they do this is by participating in the Association of Zoos and Aquariums Species Survival Plan program, which aims to manage the breeding of specific endangered species in order to help maintain healthy and self-sustaining populations that are both genetically diverse and demographically stable. According to the AZA SSPs and related programs, they have helped bring black-footed ferrets, California condors, red wolves, and several other endangered species back from the brink of extinction over the last 3 decades. Zoos also provide many benefits to animals that normally would not receive them. Good examples of these benefits are proper nutrition and medical care for injuries for species that may not get them for themselves in the wild. Also, these animals are supervised by zookeepers and staff who are willing to help them in the event of emergencies. Education and research opportunities are also available at zoos. Zoos allow children and adults to observe wild animals up close, an opportunity that is normally not possible for many people. Having exotic and large animals secured in enclosures, these places also allow researchers and scientists to perform studies to better help us understand the way animals work. This could be helpful in saving more animals. In addition, zoos help with animal survival. Out in the wild, some animals would have a very little chance to survive, especially those on the endangered list. As what we know, these animals are still hunted for their skins, bones, and other byproducts. Also, some of them have a more difficult time surviving in the wild by themselves due to pollution, destruction of their habitats, high level of competition for food, diseases, and other unfortunate reasons. Zoos also provide safety and security for animals that isn't available to them in the wild. By keeping the animals in a regulated, controlled environment, the animals have a better chance of surviving. By caring for, feeding, and working with the animals, zoo professionals can teach them and learn from their hands-on experience.
Zoos provide a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Zoos have animals that people would have to travel the world to see. With zoos, people can see these wild animals in person, all in one place, without having to travel to multiple countries. I personally feel that this is an excellent opportunity. Not all people are able to travel the world, so not everyone can see these animals in their natural habitat. Also, most animals in zoos are wild. Animals such as lions and tigers would be very dangerous to come close to. With zoos, people can also see the wild animals without experiencing a threat to their safety. We can acquire a better understanding and appreciation for the rest of the world. Each animal requires a special habitat so that it may thrive. Each habitat is the way it is according to where in the world that species comes from. By seeing the animals, we also have the chance to get a glimpse of where in the world they come from. Similar to the previous point, along with getting the chance to see animals without traveling, we can also see and gain a better understanding of what other environments and climates our world has to offer without traveling great distances. Personally, I am very interested in what the world is like outside of the United States, and zoos have helped me learn more about the rest of the world. Zoos provide a chance to conduct scientific research. Since animals in zoos are so close and in a contained area, it is much easier to gather information. Zoos can help scientists collect information and conduct research. This way, new information can be found about a species we know little about. Also, a scientist can learn ways to make living in a zoo better for the animal. This can include improving the species' habitat as well as developing new medicine for animals. I think this is an excellent opportunity because by learning more about animals and creating new medicines for them, we may also be able to help us learn more about humans and develop new medicine for us as well.
Downsides to having a zoo. A possible upside in having animals in a controlled setting is ensuring the animals have the proper nutrition. This is done in zoos by having a diet created by a nutritionist catered to provide the animals with the optimum amount of nutrition per serving, keeping the animals healthy. This can be seen as a positive effect as well as a negative effect. A negative aspect in the sense that this can make the animals that are in a controlled setting sole dependent on humans. The assisted feeding can be a positive attribute due to the fact that perhaps in the animal's natural wild habitat, the scarcity of food may be high. This could be due to a human population taking over their natural environment, causing food to go elsewhere, or it could also be due to animals that are in zoos or sanctuaries that would normally in their natural habitat migrate for food, but could not do so because they're in a confined space. This is also a problem because since the animals are solely dependent on humans for food, this can create a domestic feel, making them comfortable around humans, which can cause for a sense of trust between both the animal and the human feeding it. This causes a great danger for humans because they can lose their awareness of the animals that they are handling. A prime example of this would be at the San Francisco Zoo when a zookeeper
The cons of zoos weigh heavily on their reputation. However, they are still widely visited and a part of our communities here in the United States. The cons range from stress on the animals that are captive in these enclosures to safety concerns for the handlers of these animals. When it comes down to it, the most important cons would include stress put on the animal by altering its natural habitat and taking them from the wild. Zoos can be seen as conservation programs that keep these animals in case there is a mass depopulation of a species. However, releasing captive-born animals into the wild creates an issue because these animals do not perform well socially. A study that appeared in Biological Conservation stated that male otters and North American swift foxes that had been released after being born in captivity were less likely to breed because they lacked in areas such as social behaviors. If the efforts of conservation by zoos is to repopulate a species, they will be ineffective. Another con of zoos is that visitors may subject these animals to abuse by tapping on glass, taking flash photos, making too much noise, and simply encroaching on their space. This abuse and the training animals go through at zoos alters their natural behaviors, including being afraid of people. This no fear of humans can create safety issues with the trainers that interact with these animals. There have been many cases where animals have killed their trainers, or in one particular case, a boy was dragged around the enclosure of a silverback gorilla, resulting in the death of the animal.